On this episode of Locked On Angels, Rhett Bollinger of MLB.com wrote an article about one of GM/PM's off-season strategies in signing free agents. And it's interesting, and we're going to share it with you. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, I mean, it's Thanksgiving, so you should be grateful, right? We should be grateful. We would be grateful if you did the following things: leaving us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John. And John, we're probably at Thanksgiving meals with our everydayers. So hi, everyone. Nice to meet you, Dad,
hello.
Mom,
Ooh.
Uncle Bob.
What do you got over there?
Potatoes?
Mac and cheese? Let's go. Hey, it's our third offseason here at Locked On Angels, and we're happy to be the host every single weekday, Monday through Friday, for you talking Angels baseball. We'll go down to about 3 episodes a week during December, mid-December or so, and then we'll ramp back up before spring training. But on today's show, we are discussing Rhett Bollinger's MLB.com article about one of GM/PM's offseason strategies in signing free agents. We're going to take a look at the depth that the Angels currently have. And then there was like a weird schedule thing that happened this week, Mike, so we'll explain that as well. But first, let's get into Perry's strategy for signing free agents in the offseason.
Yeah, his strategy has been to be quick and to be fast so far, right? Like, he has been so involved, didn't get Blake Snell. That's a whole nother conversation, right?
Oh, yeah.
But he did sign Yusei Kikuchi, Kyle Hendricks, Travis d'Arnaud, Kevin Newman. The last 3 players, John, had one thing in common.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that they had in common is that they grew up in Southern California. Hendricks was born in Newport Beach. He attended Capistrano Valley High, and he was 25 miles southeast of Angel Stadium. Travis d'Arnaud, he grew up in Long Beach, and he prepped at Lakewood High School, 15 miles from the ballpark. And Kevin Newman, was born in Poway and attended Poway High School, just north of San Diego. Of course, that's 75 miles southeast of Anaheim.
That's where my wife's from. She's literally from Poway, went to Poway High. That's hilarious.
Does she know him?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you have to ask when you are in the realm of a celebrity or a well-known person. You ask, well, do you know him?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Now, John, these signings were not a coincidence, according to Perry Minasian. He said that he's learned during his time as the general manager of the Angels that one of the strategies that he had to implement is to go after players who embrace the West Coast. He said that he struck out on free agents early on in his tenure as the GM, and he learned that with some of those free agents, he never really had a chance because they had a geographic preference. Perry said, maybe my first year, my second year on this job, I was chasing guys that were not going to come here. I had very little chance of them coming west. And so in response to that, Perry said, I'm making an adjustment over the last couple of years, and I'm looking at a lot of factors, but one of the factors I'm looking at is, are they from here, and will that incentivize them coming to Anaheim?
Yeah, and I think that you hit the nail on the head in terms of why that's important. On top of the free agents available, several are from the area. Max Fried, Jack Flaherty, Shane Bieber, Corbin Burns is from Bakersfield, Michael Lorenzen is from Fullerton. Obviously, I think it was a miss to not bring Michael Lorenzen back when they had the opportunity. It's like they didn't even talk with him about it.
Right.
And he's had, moderate success since he's moved to the starting rotation. He did that with the Angels and then has had some moderate success. But there are questions about if the team will sign a big name free agent pitcher Perry said he's looking for another starting pitcher. He believes that the Angels have a lot to offer. He said this is a great place to be. There's a lot of players that would love to be here. It says a lot about the area in Southern California and how beautiful it is. It says a lot about our fan base. And opposing players also love playing here. It says a lot about the organization as a whole.
Now, Kyle Hendricks and Travis d'Arnaud both said returning closer to home was a huge factor in their decision to sign with the Angels. Perry also indicated that Kevin Newman had a preference to play out west again. He said he's drawn to Southern California. Kevin was somebody that was really wanting to be here, and he did have other options, but he did choose the Angels. And according to Perry, he said, we're excited about that. For Hendricks, it'll be the first time that he's playing in the Pacific time zone because he's been with the Cubs his entire career. He said, there's so many positives that drew me back. There are so many things from top to bottom. The people I can talk about, but just that there are so many positives when I go down the list. For d'Arnaud, he said this contract made sense because he lives in this area. And he said that his brother, sister, parents, and in-laws all live nearby. And he mentioned that family is a really important thing to him. Not having to pull the kids out of school and possibly not seeing them until August was a huge decision for d'Arnaud. And he said one of the reasons why he wanted to stay local, and he wanted them to grow up closer to family. So that was a huge factor in signing with the Angels. And then I love this little nugget that he threw in at the end. He said, I've seen the Angels win a world championship in 2002, and I know about the impact that the Angels can have on the culture in Orange County and on the culture of baseball. And he said, I want to bring that back. So I love that. John, big question.
Mm-hmm.
Human side of baseball is not often discussed, right? What's discussed is stats. What's discussed is, their career trajectory, what they've done in the past. But the human side is not often discussed. And so do you see this as a brilliant piece of Perry Minasian's strategy?
It's to be honest with you, it's a little bit concerning to me simply because if you're limited in who you're able to get here based on where they live and their preferences, I don't have a problem with somebody wanting to be here because they want to live here. I don't have an issue with that. I think my issue is if that's what you have in your bag of tricks to get somebody to be here, well then, Mike, you're going to end up with Kyle Hendricks, and Kevin Newman and Travis d'Arnaud. And we've talked about, the positives that they do bring to this team. At the same time, we're kind of icing ourselves out of the big free agents in a sense if they don't want to be here. And of course, that's a personal decision. That's something that they want to make for the benefit of their families or whatever their living situation is. I like what Michael Wacha said about, signing with the Royals and then his family falling in love with the city, wanting to stay there, signing the extension, and not having to move his family around. That really stood out to me, and that was significant. And that's why I think this is significant as well. It's just, this is the state of the Angels, right? Not California, but the status of the Angels, where one of the incentives is playing in Southern California. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But you also have the Dodgers, and you also have the Padres. And I think if they show any interest in anybody, the incentive to go there as well also plays a factor. And you have to consider the fact that the status of the Angels right now, you have to incentivize everything that you can. And at the end of the day, Mike, it's money. Money talks. I am more convinced more and more and more that, you can say 1,000 nice things about 1,000 different people and hear it from 1,000 different players. But if you're going to get paid the most by one specific team, that's where you're going to end up. And that's kind of how I feel about all of this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that this is the number one strategy of Perry Minasian, but I like that he admitted that he learned from his first couple of years.
Totally.
I'm going to have to do something a bit different. And going after this guy, he's not going to come here because his family's on the East Coast.
Right.
And so it doesn't sound like he's eliminated himself from any free agents, but it does sound like when the Angels make their pitch, they're also like, hey, your wife and kids are just down the street.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an incentive. And I think that he has to get creative that way because you're right. Money talks, but you also have to get very creative. What are the other options, the other benefits, the other things that we can bring to players? And let's throw that out on the table. And the human side, again, is not often discussed. And so I think for these guys to be near their kids, depending on how old their kids are, and a lot of them have younger kids, I think for these guys to be around their families, to be near their wives, there is a huge benefit to that, because they're not having to be away from them for months at a time. Right. And to also be around other family, so that if the wife does travel with them, the kids can stay with people that you trust. And so those are all things that we never discuss, but it is a major factor. And so I do think that for Perry, trying to be the best GM that the Angels can be, I think you have to put everything on the table, throw everything in the soup and mix it up, right? And say, this is something that's an incentive. This is something that's a positive, and we're going to run with it along with a few other things.
Yeah, I certainly don't think it's a hindrance to be in Southern California and be close to, the fantastic beaches that are down there. You're an hour away from the mountains, an hour away from the city, all that stuff. And so it's not like it's a hindrance or it takes anything away from wanting to be here. At the same time, you have to consider the tax of playing in California, right? Yeah. And this does go for all California teams, not just the Angels. And so you're going to have to add a little bit on top of that. I think, I can't remember where, I think it was Talking Halos. They made a great point about the fact that, and I kind of felt this way too. Yusei Kikuchi, right? $21 million, probably more like a $17 million pitcher based on his career. But you got to add that $4 million to offset the fact that you're playing in California. And while it's great and the living conditions are great and it's, sunshine and beaches and all that stuff, you've got to offset the fact that you're going to owe a little bit more, especially if you're a multimillionaire. And I think that's something to consider as well. But again, I don't fault Perry for making this part of his pitch, part of the incentive to be here. But I will say, until they get a strong star free agent to come here, you are going to end up with the family men and the guys who, already have like 3 kids or whatnot. And so that's going to be an interesting factor as things continue to move forward.
Here's the thing. I don't think we're having this conversation and feeling I guess you got to throw that in and those kinds of things. If Mike Trout is healthy and been playing,
right,
and if Anthony Rendon is healthy and been playing,
true,
these moves look brilliant. If these guys have had the last 5 years of incredible play on the field, right? Because this is just backloading the roster, filling in the roster with what you need. And so of course you would be like, yeah, why not offer a really good guy like Kyle Hendricks? Hey, it's in SoCal, and why not Travis d'Arnaud that'll really help this team, right? But because of the narrative that's been around this team and because of how they played and because their 2 biggest stars can't stay on the field, everything gets kind of skewed as you talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, how's the team look on paper? Well, we're going to share the depth chart and our thoughts and discuss it here on Locked On Angels, and we'll get to that in just a minute.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, if you're a new customer, you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets, and the sportsbook app is free for you to download, and it has everything that you need for all kinds of sports, especially for the NFL. You get a hunch in the middle of the game as you're watching the game, maybe today.
Yeah, especially today. Let's go.
Right? You can make a bet on whatever is available on FanDuel. And what I like is that they're creative bets. You just need to get the app. So download it at FanDuel.com today and then place a bet, especially if you're a first-time customer. $5 bet will guarantee you $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. Again, go to FanDuel.com and never waste a hunch. Don't do it. Don't fall asleep on the couch because of the tryptophan. Don't do that. Stay awake and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, even Thanksgiving. Let's go. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Mike, let's take a look with all the signings so far that the Angels have made. On paper, this team looks a lot better than they did probably at any point last season,
Right.
especially with the fact that you've replaced some guys, you've added in terms of need, but also performance. And so I think it's important for us to go over the depth chart and kind of figure out, I don't know, take an assessment of where the Angels stand on Thanksgiving Day before the winter meetings, before the end of the year,
Yeah.
and before spring training, when, those are kind of the 3 times that things will heat up. So let's take an assessment here of what we have so far.
Yeah, at catcher, of course, we have Logan O'Hoppe, and then Travis d'Arnaud is backing him up. I think that is a big upgrade from Matt Theis. And d'Arnaud, I think, brings a lot of veteran experience, also brings a pretty competitive bat. I know he's not fantastic, but he's got a lot of power. And so he's going to be that backup that I think really benefits Logan O'Hoppe.
I need to look something up here. So, about d'Arnaud. So keep going, and
I saw the light bulb come on.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
first base, Nolan Shawnuel, who, by the way, had a 700 OPS last year.
Let's go.
I mean, the guy really turned it around because he started off really struggling. Batted .250, had a on-base percentage of .330. So, I mean, the guy was doing what we wanted him to do. I think I'd love to see that batting average a little bit higher. Backing him up is Noda and Kavadas is what's listed on the depth chart. Nico was the AFL player of the year, and had
Arizona Fall League, baby,
right? And then played some outfield for them. So he's listed as a backup first baseman. Now for second base, Rengifo, Newman, Kingery, and then they have Christian Moore listed as well. Now, we're not sure where he will play and where he will land in 2025. I think we will see him based off of the Angels' history, right? And then we've got Zach Neto, who will be hurt to start the season, and then Newman and Kingery, and then Kyron Paris backing him up. Third base, Rendon's listed, but all the talk is that he's really going to have to play completely out of his mind to prove that he deserves to even be considered as a starter there. Yeah. And then Rengifo backs him up, Newman, Kingery. And then the outfield, of course, we've got Trout, Ward, Adele, Moniak, Jorge Soler, but he'll probably play a bit more DH. He can play each of those positions, but Johnny, he's not great in each of those positions.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I was looking up something about d'Arnaud, and I wanted to see, when was the last time he played a little first base, Mike? And the last time he did that was with the Rays in 2019, started there 21 times.
Wow.
So it's been a long time since d'Arnaud has played first base, but I was just wondering if he might be an option over there, maybe in a emergency kind of situation, we could see him over there. But you also have to consider the fact that Freddie Freeman was over there for the Braves all through those early 2020s. And then, now they have Matt Olson. So not necessarily a reason to put Travis d'Arnaud over at first base, but I was just curious to see what the numbers were there.
I wonder if we'll see Logan O'Hoppe there.
True.
Games, right?
Fair.
That might be where they get him off of his, not necessarily off of his feet, but actually give a rest to his knees. Sure. And I think it would be a wise move with the DH spot kind of being plugged up with Soler and possibly Mike Trout, right?
Yeah. Teach him first base, get him over there. And this is kind of the perfect year to maybe give it a try, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the starters, John. And Perry Minasian said yesterday in an interview, and we'll go into more depth about this next week, but he said that right now, Kikuchi, Soriano, Anderson, and Hendricks are slotted in for the starting 4.
Makes sense to me.
I think that makes sense, which is pretty interesting, right? Because then that leaves Detmers, Kahanowitz, Silseth, Caden Dana, Sam Bachman, Sam Altaguiri, and we don't even mention George Clausen, who didn't make it to the majors last year, who is a really like swing and miss type of guy, almost like a Blake Snell right-handed type of pitcher, right? And so I'm interested to see what they will do with that 5th spot. I could see, and I believe that they should, move in the direction of Jack Kahanowitz and let him be the guy that starts in that 5th spot. But I wonder if they would go with 2. Actually, they already have 2 left-handers. So I wonder if they would not want to have 3 left-handers with Reed Detmers in this starting rotation. But if they do that, John, what do they do with Reed?
Yeah, that was going to be my point is the lefty situation. Well, and now you got me digging again on Reed Detmers. I just want to make sure he's got some options left. I'm pretty sure that he does at this point. But again, Mike, I think that the fact that there's a competition for that spot. Okay, yeah, he's got 2 options left. So Reed Detmers is good there. So they could.
The big question, though, is he was not thrilled with being in the minor leagues and actually having his time extended with the Angels. And so I get it. I love that you just went to the, friends, here's how I know my brother is about to make a point. He'll go, like he's coming with the fire. And you're right. You're absolutely right. Reed has to prove that he deserves to be in that starting rotation.
And don't suck.
Absolutely. One of our everydayers said if he would just lock in, we wouldn't have to worry about any other pitcher because Reed could be the guy as the 5th guy in the starting rotation that could be phenomenal.
I think that having those 4 locked in is a great place to start. But also, Mike, competition breeds success. Competition breeds good outcomes for everybody involved. I wouldn't expect Caden Dana to be that 5th spot. I wouldn't expect Sam Bachman to be in that 5th spot just because, there's still question marks around him.
Yeah.
But as far as Dana goes, I think he still has a lot to improve on. I think he's got what it takes to be a really significant starter for the Angels. I just don't think 2025 is the year to do it. And we had this discussion a couple of weeks ago on when did the Angels bring up guys to play full-time in the major leagues after drafting them or signing them as an amateur international free agent or whatnot. And it seemed to be about 22, 23 years old. And so that is kind of arbitrary in terms of age. But if you think about it in the sense of they're prepared to do the task by the time that they're 22, 23 years old. I think when you look at Caden Dana, you give him those extra years to get good and continue to work on things. For some reason, FanGraphs hates him and they rate his pitches like really poorly. Yeah. And so if there's something to work on there, I think that that's significant. But as far as depth goes, this is, it's already better than what we were rolling in with last season.
Right.
And I think Kikuchi is going to surprise a lot of people. And I think that he's going to continue that positive trajectory that he's been on, because you look at last year and it's more than just the 10 starts with the Astros. It's what he was able to do in 2023. It's how he started 2024. Then he struggled and then he picked it up at the end of the season. Look, I think that he's going to be able to lead this rotation if they don't make another move. And I know Perry's out there trying to wheel and deal and get people to come to Southern California, like we talked about. But I think that Kikuchi is a huge positive and a great start for this rotation. And then Anderson's going to start the season out strong. And maybe he'll tail off by the time it's the All-Star break once again, like he did last year. But at least we know that first half is probably going to be fairly significant in terms of what he's able to do. Hopefully we have a healthy Soriano. Hopefully Hendricks can find it again, like a lot of MLB insiders believe he will. And then we got to turn to the bullpen, Mike. They've got Ben Joyce, Brock Burke, who I really like, Ryan Zephyr-John, who tore it up. Jose Quijada is back. Hans Kraus. Jose Suarez would probably be that long relief guy. And then Robert Stevenson, maybe about June or so is when he'll be fully healthy, rehabbed, and ready to go. So a lot of interesting choices for the Angels right now.
Yeah, very much so. The question then is so what's the next logical move, right? Because there's a lot of talk about a left-handed power bat, and then there's a conversation about Cody Bellinger maybe being traded here, but I think his price tag is pretty high. And then if they do get another starter, which I hope that they do, will it be, John, maybe one of those top-tier starters? Because when you give $36 million to Blake Snell,
36.4, but yes,
then everything goes up, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's something we're going to talk about tomorrow on our Black Friday deals episode, which I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, I think at this point, the next logical move for the Halos got to be the infielder, somebody to play the middle infield that moves around. He to third, or they get a third baseman, Mike. And you mentioned Cody Bellinger. I think that that's an interesting choice. I've seen a lot of what about Anderson and Ward? Well, on one hand, I'm like, you guys, do you just want to get rid of them? But on the other hand, it all depends on how badly the Cubs want out of the contract. Same thing we've been talking about with Alec Boehm and Taylor Ward. Everyone says, oh, that's going to be an underpay on the Angels side and an overpay on the Philly side. But how badly do these teams want to move these players, that's something you can't underestimate. It goes back to what you were saying in the first segment. Where they want to live is an important factor. It's a human factor. And then on the team side, how bad do they want to get out of these contracts, I think is going to be a significant part of the equation.
John, the Rays Stadium, obviously, it needs some work.
Yeah, terrible, man.
After the hurricane, the whole roof's tore off, right? So the Rays are going to play at George M. Steinbrenner's Field, and I just can't say that without seeing the character on Seinfeld, right?
Yeah.
George, so they're going to play. That's in Tampa.
Costanza is in the building.
Yeah.
Got my calzone. Yeah.
So here's why this matters to the Angels. Due to this change, the Halos will now change when they play the Rays. Here's what Major League Baseball said earlier this week. They said and made an announcement that they've made a change to the master schedule for next season because of the adjustment for the Rays having to transition to an outdoor stadium. So the series between the Rays and the Angels that was originally scheduled for Anaheim Stadium, Angel Stadium, I still call it Anaheim Stadium, April 7th to April 9th will now take place in Tampa at Steinbrenner Field, Tuesday, April 8th to Thursday, April 10th. So that's not going to be a home game. They're going to go to Tampa. The second meeting between the clubs, which was scheduled for August 5th to August 7th, will now be played at Angel Stadium on August 4th to August 6th. So the series between the Rays and the Twins is going to be rescheduled as well. But specifically for the Angels, this impacts them in a really, I think, helpful way. Right, Johnny?
Yeah. So because of the change, they have a 13-game homestand from July 24th to August 6th.
Yeah.
Which is
13
crazy.
games. That's awesome.
They're always on the road during that time of the year.
Right.
And so they're going to play 22 of 28 games at home from July 24th to August 24th. And the reason for the change was essentially because, you know, the weather where they're going to be playing in Tampa is not great.
Yeah.
During the August month. Well, and you might get summer storms, you might get hurricane weather, all that kind of stuff. And so that's why they're going to be over in Angel Stadium, and that's going to be hot as well. But they play through hot weather all the time, and it'll be a nice, cool night on Monday, August 4th, right? That's what we're hoping for.
Yep.
But all that to say, it really does change things up. They even had to change things with the Twins as well. But it does seem to be to the Angels' benefit, right, Mike?
Yeah, because if they're going to play 22 out of 28 games at home in the middle of what they call the dog days of summer, I think that really gives the Angels a great advantage because we saw those young players really wear down as the season got later into August and September. Now, I know that this is their second full season, right? Going to play the full season and be okay. But I really think that what this is going to be, how it's going to benefit the Angels, is that these young guys are not going to have to travel. They're not going to have the flight tiredness. They're not going to have to go across the country. I mean, they're going to be able to be for 13 straight games at home, and then only 6 of those games are going to be away in a span of 28 games. And so I think this really benefits a young Angel team. And it'll be interesting, and I think we should pay attention to it. It'll be interesting to see how they come out of the July 24th to August 24th home streak, because I think that could be an opportunity if they're behind a bit, if they're trailing in that third wild card, to really pick up some games. And even if they're difficult games, to really pick up some games on the teams that could potentially be ahead of them.
Yeah, here's something interesting. The All-Star game and All-Star week, the All-Star game's the 15th of July. The week, of course, starts that Sunday on the 13th when they, get into all of the events with like celebrities, and then there's like the draft and everything, and then it moves into the All-Star break. And so, the Angels will start that long streak of home games the following week. So they'll have like a near week off.
Yeah.
And then they'll be out there and then come home and start that long streak. So that's pretty significant as well to have that break right there.
And that, when people talk about Ron Washington's impact, that's the stuff that you have to pay attention to. You get 22 out of 28 games at home after a week off.
Yeah.
You have to take full advantage of that, right? Like the 22 games, you have to win 15 of those, right? You have to come out of that with 15 to 17 wins.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that's where I think Ron Washington is going to have to really flex his managerial influence and get these guys to really, I think, run the table, no matter who's coming in, to run the table and get some significant wins and gain some significant ground.
At least it's not like it was in 2020 where scheduling made an Angels home game an actual away game. And then remember Victor Rojas called the walk-off.
Oh, man, I hate this. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so great. So nothing like that is happening this time. They still have the same amount of home and away games at this point.
Hey, thanks for making this Thanksgiving edition of Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, you can go back for seconds and listen to our friend solely on Locked On MLB. He's going to mix a blend of humor and baseball and keep you updated on every rumor and every story throughout the offseason. You can find his show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, if you want to give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram, we encourage you to do that. But do it tomorrow. Don't do it on Thanksgiving. Put the phone away, hang up and hang out, and then follow us on Friday. So that way you're engaged with your friends and family on Thanksgiving. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Well, we're going to go Black Friday shopping, John. We're going to fill out this Halo roster with some of the great options, some of the mid options, and some bargain bin shopping. So we're going to go to Jaguar and we're going to go to Target. That's what we're going to do, right? Tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
I don't know about Jaguar. They just changed their logo.
That's why it's fresh in my mind.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I thought so. All right, friends. We hope you have continue to have a great Thanksgiving holiday. And we'll see you back here tomorrow. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody. And we'll see you back here on Friday.
Can you pass the potatoes, please, and the gravy?
I need some. You got any more rolls?